Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. The 2027 SimNFL draft is in the books, and we're going to talk all about it on today's show. If you're unfamiliar with what we do here, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So first, we're going to talk about a couple of trades that happened during or right up to the draft and the impact of those. We're going to talk about players who rose and fell compared to our expectations. We're going to look at some reaches, some teams that maybe wanted a specific position and moved a little quickly to do that, and some steals, some players, some diamonds in the rough some teams may have found, and then do just a couple of final takeaways. So this is just the first bit of our draft coverage. Overalls just got revealed today as I'm recording this on Tuesday. And there's still more draft content, I'm sure, to come from me, from other people who will be doing draft grades and such. After this, I am disappearing for a couple weeks, though, so I wanted to get out a little bit of content just to say to everyone, and then we'll talk more about it when I come back. So first, let's talk about trades, and the biggest one was Tennessee moving up to number 4, trading with a division rival in Indianapolis. So the Colts went down from 4 to 25, and also sent Mitchell Reynolds, 78 overall running back, to the Titans. So Tennessee, I've reconfigured the way I write the trades so that we can look at who they drafted. So the Titans, with 4 overall, went with fullback Daniel Johns, the FCS legend himself, who was a 66 overall at age 22, one of the top players in the draft. So Tennessee acquired Mitchell Reynolds and drafted Daniel Johns, so they have got this dynamite backfield that they hope can carry Will Outman and continue their franchise streak of 5 playoff appearances in a row. But they did give up a lot. In addition to moving up, they gave up their second round pick, which was 57 overall. They gave up their first and second in 2028 and their first in 2029. So a huge investment in this offensive backfield in Tennessee, hoping that these two guys can carry their team for years to come. So Indianapolis made the most of their picks, taking defensive end Miles Chowdhury, 25th overall, and then Saquon Gote in the second round, and of course stocking up on future picks as well. So this is essentially a reverse Lions trade, where originally the Colts traded up from 18 to 3, giving up 2 additional firsts to do so. And now they trade down from 4 to 25, pick up 2 additional firsts and 2 additional seconds as well. So Tennessee gets a couple of dynamite runners. Indianapolis gets 2 additional firsts and 2 additional seconds to move down 21 spots. Also get Chowdhury out of their pick in this first. And then Denver had a bunch of moves. What else is new? So their first steps were in acquiring draft capital. So on draft day, before things started, they moved Derek Dixon to Miami, the 91 overall offensive tackle. And they got Miami's first this year, which is 30th overall. They got a third next year and then a 5th in 2029. But the big one was a first-round pick in this year's draft for Dixon. And then as part of this multi-legged trade they did during the draft, one piece of that was sending the 2029 first from the Dallas Cowboys, which was acquired as part of the Peter London trade. And they sent that far future first for the 35th pick this year. So a high second this year in exchange for a first 2 years from now. So those are the moves they did to acquire the draft capital in order to make this trade, where they sent that 30th and 35th pick and another one of their additional firsts from the Peter London trade, their 2028 first. All of that was packaged and sent to the Cincinnati Bengals in exchange for 5 overall, which they used to draft Cooper Williams, the field general quarterback who they hope is their quarterback of the future. So big surprise to everyone, both the move up and the player they took. So Denver gets Cooper Williams. Cincinnati got 30 and 35, which they used on Michelle March-Lilliard and defensive end Warren Higashioka. And then they have a first next year. Honestly, when you look at what it costs to move up 25 spots, essentially, not as big of a giveaway as what the Titans did, to move up from 25 to 4. So impressive there. Again, you got to remember that they had 2 extra firsts from trading away Peter London, and essentially used both of them because they sent one of the firsts to get that 35 overall. Packaged that with this first from 2028 to Cincinnati, as well as the first round pick that they acquired by sending Derek Dixon. So basically, they trade their starting quarterback for 2 firsts, then package those 2 firsts and a starting 91 overall tackle, all of that to move up to number 5 to take the quarterback of the future. So you can kind of see the logic in basically resetting the clock, getting all these picks to send London to Dallas, and then using all that capital to move up and get what they hope is their quarterback of the future. So time will tell if Cooper Williams is that guy, but Denver certainly believed in him and made the move to go up and get him. We also have a trade up where Kansas City moved up from 27 to 16, and they sent their second rounder to Buffalo to do that. So Kansas City got the 16th overall pick, and they took cornerback Joseph Reddick, who's a 65 overall, looks like a very strong player. Buffalo moved down to 27, was still able to get Timothy Doak, 61 overall center, and then used that extra pick on Xanon Reed, the quarterback. So they got him in the second round. Again, I think a great move by both teams. Buffalo getting an additional pick and still getting a star player. Kansas City moving up to really target a guy that they wanted for their defensive secondary. So, as we've talked a little bit, we've seen some of the names already, but who are some players that we saw taken much earlier or much later than we initially thought? I say we, standing in for the whole group of pundits and everyone who made mock drafts or even just kind of talked about it on Discord. So in the rising section, obviously the big name is Daniel Johns. Absolutely worth it as a 66 overall, A+ potential. But yeah, a fullback from an FCS school where he wasn't even used as much as he should have been is a fantastic rise and a fantastic story, I think, for him to go top 5. And again, not just go top 5, but be traded for a huge deal that Tennessee made to move up to 4 to get him. Just a very, very cool story, and I'm excited to see what he does in the league. Similar to that, Cooper Williams, a massive trade to go up to 5 and get him. After Kyung Hui went off the board, already people were saying, is that the only quarterback we're going to see in the first round? And it wasn't even then we had a second quarterback taken at the top 5, which I think not a lot of people were expecting. Big rise for Cooper Williams to go from, is he even worth a first to, a team's going to wager their whole future on getting this guy. William Henry went in 15th, actually went before his teammate Batillier. But again, as a 62 A+, you can see why. So in a class that was originally lauded for its wide receiver depth, Henry making a big splash and getting taken before some of the bigger names who we will talk about in just a moment. And then Joseph Reddick, yet again, a similar story here. A guy who may not have been on everyone's mind, but not only went in the top half of the first, but someone traded up to get him. Looks like the genuine article at a 65 overall. Another example of a player that kind of emerged from the scouting process and drew a lot of positive attention. And another name of that was Gregory Green. If you weren't recruiting wide receivers, this may have been a complete shock. And if you were recruiting wide receivers, you may have been sad to see this guy go before you could grab him. Going with the Green Bay Packers, just an absolutely fantastic fit. But Gregory Green, 63 overall, C+ potential. Another surprising name compared to the pre-draft expectations of which receivers were going to go in the first round and in what order. And on that note, on the falling side, we have Andy Texera. Texera was the number 1 overall pick by a couple people in their final mock drafts, but slid all the way to the second round, despite still being a 63 overall with B+ potential. So kind of a surprising drop there. Great value in the second round. A slightly more surprising one is Patrick Hernandez, who ruled an absolutely terrible potential, or at least is showing a terrible potential. So instead of being a first-round pick, ended up slipping to the middle of the second, along with Jeffrey Bertillier, who was taken 4 picks later at 46. Similar story, decent overall, very bad potential. Still wasn't going to fall forever, but not the draft pedigree we were expecting based on his college production. Francisco Santiago, another name that surprisingly may have fallen despite having strong overall and potential, especially considering the relative dearth of talent we saw this year. So 59 B minus going at 62, a bit low, certainly lower than he was expected to go. A lot of mocks had him going in the first round, even as an offensive guard, which isn't always the position that teams covet with that first round pick. A solid player deserves a solid draft position, and he fell a little bit. But of course, no one, I think, relative to expectations, fell quite as far as Paul McCullers-Sanders, PMS, the quarterback, who went all the way until the 5th round before being selected. 56 overall, see potential. Is not going to get it done when teams are looking for their quarterback of the future. So for a pocket guy who was mocked by many to be the second or third quarterback off the board and potentially worthy of a first-round pick and maybe even upper half of the first round, not even going in the first 100 picks is certainly not what he had in mind for his draft day experience. Now, those are a little bit easier to talk about because we had absolute numbers to say where someone was mocked and where they went. Now we're getting into a little more subjective territory, but that's when it gets fun when we talk about the draft. So we're talking about reaches and steals, players that were taken maybe above where their overall would suggest they were valued at, and then a steal is someone who slips through the cracks and then it gives their team a lot of value when they get to be taken later in the draft. So this is no shade on anyone or their draft process, just one analyst's opinion. But I mean, the first thing we got to ask about is Cooper Williams. I mean, that is a huge, huge risk for Denver. Again, I know they used assets from trading their last quarterback to acquire Williams. And I know Peter London maybe being anti-clutch had been kind of a meme at this point. But this is a 5-time conference champion, and they moved on from him, and they think that Cooper Williams is the next guy. And as a 59 A potential, if that A is even close to true, and if they can get him snaps, could be very, very special. But also he's a field general archetype, which there aren't a lot of teams that are looking for that specifically, and especially willing to make a big splash for, considering that archetype values IQ maybe more than throw power. So yeah, it's a huge risk, and I'm very interested to see what he does for the future of the Denver Broncos. The other thing to consider is, again, where might he have gone or how late. It's interesting that Denver not only wanted him, but wanted to get up into the top 5 to make absolutely sure that no one else who found out he was a 59A was going to take him. So very, very ambitious to jump up that high just to make sure no one else did. Again, I didn't scout quarterback, so I don't know if he was on anyone's radar as like, oh, this guy is actually really good. He's a first-round talent. I didn't hear a lot of chatter about him being a top 5 pick, so it surprises me that Denver moved up as drastically as they did for him. But again, we shall see. It could all be worth it in the end. Next is Tony Crowley, who was taken at 28 overall. By far the best edge rushing linebacker in this class. Unfortunately, that's just not saying a lot as a 56 overall with C+ potential. It was a terrible class for edge rushers, unfortunately, for defenses that run that archetype and are having gaps in that area. I know the Browns are certainly one as well. So it stinks when you don't have good candidates. Crowley, being the best of a bad class, managed to get a first-round pick. I don't know that it will end up bearing fruit, but we shall see. Mike Tuitt is another name. He went at the top of the second. He went 37th overall. Now, again, a situation where there weren't a lot of good centers, but reaching for a 54 overall in the top of the second, especially when there were guards available like Francisco Santiago, who was a 59 B- at age 22. He was still on the board at guard. Maybe you draft him and, spend training camp getting him snaps at center, try to move him over. And obviously, hindsight's 2020. No one's going to make the absolute best pick, the top player at their position of need every single time. But it does hurt when you say, hey, I need this guy. We're going to go up and get the best one we can find, and he ends up only being a 54 in the second round. Similarly, tight end Lance Rogers was taken at 53. He's a 54 overall, B+. He was the 5th tight end taken in the draft, but he was the 4th tight end taken in 10 picks. So basically, March Lilliard and Habib and a couple other guys went immediately after. And again, I don't know if this was a panic pick, like, hey, we really counted on getting a tight end in the second, and now Rodgers is the best one left. Or I don't know if they thought he was higher than that based on his scouting, or they were counting on his potential. Hard to really say. But it certainly seems like after those top 4 tight ends went, there was a big drop-off, and this may have been the time to pivot. Even if you were really targeting a tight end in the second, you can't play by the board that you wish you had. You got to play with the board you have. I think Rodgers went a little high based on his card, the way it looks now. And finally, Saquon Gote. Again, this one's going to be scrutinized for a while because this was as part of a trade. So you look at the assets you get, and also some man cover corners like Tom Koch and Thaddeus Kohler were taken the round below him. And even into the high 4th, there were man cover corners of similar quality. So this one's just a case of you got a guy. There might have been some better guys available if you were going for a lockdown man cover corner. And Gote before some of these other guys, maybe even a full round before, kind of stings. On the more positive side, I mentioned Andy Texeira before. Again, mocked high in the first, had a good combine, definitely would have gotten some scouting attention. Still not sure how he lasted at 38, but hey, more power to you if you can get a first-round talent at the top of the second, especially a first-round talent, an absolute first-round talent in this draft when talent was harder to come by. Getting him at 38 is a big, big win. He was the 3rd tackle taken, but he was taken 25 picks after the second. So yeah, a lot of teams had the opportunity. There were not a lot of tackles taken before him. Texeira, despite his quality, lasted until the second. It's a big steal there. I think that the Holden pick is a steal. I hope that makes up for the Crowley judgment earlier. A 58A, again, when you look at, I know overall isn't everything, but when you look at a team, mortgaging their future for a 59A, and then a 58A falls all the way to the bottom of the second. I know he's a scrambling quarterback. I know that brings challenges in the passing game. But he's the 4th quarterback taken, A potential, bottom of the second, into a great situation, a team that has an established scrambler but can let Holden develop behind him. I think that's a win for Holden. I think that's a win for the Chargers. Alex Dunn was the first player taken on day 2. He lasted until the 65th pick. And I believe there was a trade up to take him. There were a couple trades up into the top of day 2. Teams did some extra scouting and found, hey, this guy's still here. And Dunn is a great example at a 61 B+ potential, which is great in any draft, but phenomenal in this one. And he's a dual position type, so he can play 4 different positions on the offensive line. Just a first round grade on a guy, really. Just a first round grade, and getting him at the top of the 3rd is great value. Bryn Griffin was taken with the 100th pick in the top of the 4th round. He was the 8th running back taken in this draft. Again, draft looked like it was going to be very heavy with running back potential, and it was, although there was a pretty significant drop-off after the first 4. But Griffin was A- overall, so he's in that 60-61 range, with above average potential, showing at least B-, and to be taken at the end of 100th as the 8th running back, it's impressive to still get value like that when you're that deep into a position. And speaking of, Franklin Riggins is an A overall. He was taken 129th. He was the 13th running back taken. And that A suggests he's going to have an overall of at least 62, maybe even higher. He's got showing B potential. That's a fantastic pick for any position, but especially for the 13th guy taken at your position at pick 129. That's great, great value. And then the final steal I want to highlight is linebacker Robert King, taken by the Cowboys with the 187th pick. To give you some perspective, there were only 4 linebackers of 60 overall or higher taken in this draft. Only 4. 2 of them went in the top 15. That's Rudock and Stonebreaker. And then Robles fell because he rolled F potential, so he fell into the 3rd. So that's incredible company, considering 2 first-round picks and a 3rd rounder because of terrible potential. And then the last of that group, the last 60-plus linebacker, falls to 187 and gets taken in the 6th round. That tremendous value for the Cowboys, and the rich certainly getting richer based on that pick. So some final takeaways from this draft. Again, very early stages of our analysis, and we will be back in a couple weeks to talk more about it and talk more about how these players are going to fit into their teams and how that changes the outlook for the coming year. But much less high-end talent than was expected. We ended up, not counting UDFAs, obviously, with 33 players who were 60 overall or higher. So just over the number of teams we have. Last year that number was 76, and the year before it was 84. So yeah, getting less than half of that number at this threshold is very surprising, very much a down year, especially when you look at some of the positions that were projected to be deeper. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But yeah, definitely, once you got out of half of the first round, a real drop in quality, and it became a lot harder to pick up, potential long-term starters. That's not to say guys can't have good progressions. That's not to say guys can't play better than their overall or find a spot in the league. It just seems like it's going to take longer for most of this class to come online than we were expecting based on the last 2 years. And then some big names rolled low potentials, which, again, this happens every year, so I'm trying to avoid confirmation bias. But certainly some big names and some solid overalls that fell due to their potentials. Smith-Schuster rolled a D. Fellow receivers Hernandez and Boutillier both rolling D-. Really hurts them. A 59 overall with even decent, say nothing of good potential, that's a first-round pick. With a D- showing, even if that's erring on the negative side, right? Even if it's truly C- or so, that's still below average. So that hurts. And seeing them both fall to the middle of the second was tough. And then Robles and Lopez, so one of the best linebackers in the draft, and then Joe Lopez, who was a power back, and power backs had kind of a bad night, but specifically rolling F potential and falling as far as he did is rough. So yeah, this happens all the time where, someone rolls a low potential and then teams have to pivot. We saw it with Nebel, we saw it with Oliveros. So it's not unique to this year, but certainly a significant number of really big names falling because of low potentials when you all consider the first bullet point that we're already having lower overalls. Definitely mix things up on the board, definitely push down some big names to be not quite as desirable as we might have expected. But I don't mean to end on a down note, because it was a fantastic time, and I definitely enjoyed having a live draft. Thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you to everyone who continues to put out content related to it, via the draft book and draft grades and any other kind of content introducing your draft classes. If you've never done any media before, feel free to take a crack at it. This is a great time to dive in and have some fun RPing with the stuff we do in the league. That is everything I have for this edition of the SimNFL show. Short and sweet. Again, I'll be out for a couple of weeks, but I will be back to talk more about the upcoming season in a few Tuesdays from now. So thank you everyone for stopping by and listening. And as I say to all users in all of our sims, good luck and have fun.